So, good evening and welcome. And we're going to part one of our really what I'm excited to share with a lot of families and student athletes across the country, also into Canada. I'm going to consider and take a deep dive into the postgraduate experience. We hear as parents all kinds of postgraduate opportunities. We look on social media, we see the words postgraduate, and one is definitely not like the other. For decades, many high level academic institutions have worked with a gap year. Major political families and corporate CEOs and executives that have children that aspire to go to the higher levels of academic universities and colleges throughout the country often are deferred acceptance, in some cases for one semester or in other cases a full year. And in the world of athletics, it's been going on for decades with many sports, particularly with hockey. And hockey has a version of the postgraduate experience or gap year, and they do a junior hockey with some JUCO classes. But postgraduate academic and athletic opportunities have really been around for well over a century. In fact, most of the predominant postgraduate high schools located in the Northeast Mid Atlantic area have been around for close to 2.5 centuries. And tonight, I thought it would be great to start off our postgraduate discussions in series with a school that I became familiar with when I was in high school. My football coach attended Deerfield Academy as a postgraduate. And one look into Coach Moriarty's last several years, you can see a really elevated climb with regard to the baseball aspect. But Deerfield is considered on a global basis one of the best academic learning institutions at the high school level in the world, not just the country. So, first and foremost, I want to introduce and say thank you for joining us today. But Coach Pat Moriarty, Deerfield Academy head baseball coach, thank you very much for taking the time to join me today.
And thank you, Walter. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it and look forward to chatting with you here tonight.
We hear the words postgraduate bantied about, tossed about, and, we have programs that are athletic centric, whether it's strength gain, skill set development, et cetera. But why don't you share a little bit about what the postgraduate experience is like, not only for baseball, but at Deerfield Academy for all prospective students that are looking to gain that extra year from a high school and a college prep perspective?
Sure. Yeah. A postgraduate year at Deerfield or a postgraduate student at Deerfield is considered a senior. Will receive a diploma from Deerfield, not a certificate of attendance like some other schools, but a diploma from Deerfield. They'll walk across the stage and graduate with Deerfield seniors, class of 2025, if we're talking about this year. They'll be housed in single dorm rooms on a senior dorm or in a senior dorm. They'll take classes with our seniors and juniors. There is no distinction between a postgraduate here and a senior. Our only requirement for a postgraduate student here is a full year of English. Other than that, the other four classes are basically made to order in terms of what type of institution that particular PG is looking at.
One of the areas that I would like you to kind of discuss is, tell us a little bit about the community at Deerfield Academy. The how long has Deerfield been a school? A little bit of the background of some of the notable alumni and some of the academic and athletic achievements that not only since you've been at Deerfield, but in the history of the school.
Sure. So the school opened in 1797. We're a school of 650 students, I think currently represented by students from 45 different countries and 35 different states. I think probably our most notable alumni is the King of Jordan. He attended Deerfield when he was the Prince. And baseball wise, probably our most notable alumni would be Mike Tremblay, who was a pitcher in the major leagues for quite some time, pitched down at Duke. Yeah, and Deerfield has a lot of tradition, obviously, and what we look for here is and for our PGs and for all of our students is to challenge them academically, socially, and athletically. We want to not only great players here, we want to make great people.
And I would love, for parents to get a good, deeper understanding. The value of a postgraduate year far, supersedes the athletic piece. It is a social, cultural, academic. You're really getting the opportunity to learn time management skills, how to be a college student athlete before you actually have to become a college student athlete.
Exactly. Our day here will be is basically the same as if you were in college. It's what you're going to do with your free time. If you want to get in the weight room, are you going to do that before class? Are you going to get some swings? Are you going to do that during a free period? Are you going to do that after class or after dinner? I think it's the best skill that we teach here is time management, maybe with a close second of learning how to use your voice and talk to adults in the community. But time management is paramount here. And I think it's one of the best skills that we teach.
I would, when I'm talking with parents and trying to get them to understand, the long term benefit to a postgraduate year as opposed to that, athletic centric window where we're just looking at it from a college recruiting perspective. Can you kind of talk about your current postgraduate students that are there now, some of the things that are surprising to them as far as the things they're doing, things they're learning in their preparation from a recruiting standpoint, as well as their college application process?
Sure. Yeah. And just this morning, I ate with several of them. I offer some time in the fall. I call it breakfast with coach, where we meet for breakfast. It's optional, but we meet to start the day and have a nice meal, share a meal, talk, see what's going well, see what's not going well. We're just moving through the midterm here, so checking in on classes and overall their well being. Right. That's first and foremost. In terms of the recruiting piece here, we have 6 postgraduates here, class of 2025. So big class. One came in already committed, just needed an extra year. The other 5, I had a hand in helping commit the summer prior. And currently, right up to now, we've got a player now with a couple pre-reads out, waiting to hear back from colleges. So we're still kind of finishing the puzzle, if you will. But I think a lot of schools will tell you before you get there is get committed before you get here. Because you're not going to play baseball until the spring, and at that point you're going to be committed to a college, you're going to be matriculated to a college, accepted and matriculated to a college, and everything else. It's a different story here. April 10th, which is our deposit date, it's the date that our students have to deposit by to hold their slot. As soon as our kids deposit, I get to work for those guys, and we get eyes on them. I get out to see them play, and we start the network for them, for the students that are uncommitted prior to getting here.
Can you talk a little bit about that as far as what are some of the schools that you work with? I think a lot of parents, are unfamiliar with the process. So when you say, okay, I go to work, explain what that means, because as somebody doing that type of work, I understand what you're talking about, but I want parents to understand the inner workings, the inner sanctum of your world. So once you identify someone that has an interest in Deerfield, they deposit, they accept. Once they've been, admitted as prospective students, what do you do in that point as far as communication? What type of coaches do you talk to as far as schools, and how does that begin?
Yeah, I think it begins first off with me being their college advisor here. I should have mentioned that is my full time position here is college advisor. So I work with all the baseball PGs here. we get right to work in terms of academic fit and overall fit. And we don't start with baseball and figure out how to work the location and academic program in. We start with the academic program, location, size, and we kind of work from there. But currently speaking, I think I know we have a player at BC right now. I have a pitcher at Harvard. We've got two commits going to Cornell in the class of 2025. We've had players at Johns Hopkins. My son's at Bowdoin. We've got players at Williams, Middlebury, a couple players at Holy Cross. So, for the most part, the Patriot, NESCAC, and Ivy League is where we're going to do a lot of our business. But as I mentioned, we've got a player at BC as well in the ACC. So, I'm excited to sort of see where the fit is for these student athletes and their families.
Now, you had mentioned that you have 45 states represented, and you get a lot of probably alumni that hope to send their children to Deerfield. I would love for you to share your perspective of the value of the application with a transcript from Deerfield, meaning, look, I had two sons that attended Auburn High School. I went to Fitchburg High School. I value the public education system, but it could be a safe assumption that when you submit a transcript from Deerfield to any college admissions department, that must carry some additional, value with regard to the application, does it not?
Without a doubt, the Deerfield brand is worldwide. I think some of the students that come here. I know, for instance, my son who graduated last year, his best friend was from Hong Kong. Parents, created the line of Invisalign for your teeth. There are all sorts of other families that are plugged in here, and I think our alumni office does a tremendous job with connecting our students, whether it be after graduation or prior to graduation, in terms of where students are looking. And we have a vast alumni base, as I mentioned before, including the King of Jordan. The owner of the New York Jets sent his son here. The list goes on and on. Former presidents, kids, and everything else. So it's a really good network, and as I mentioned, it's worldwide.
I want to you use the word that I often use within the recruiting space, which is having a network, not necessarily just regional. It's a global faculty. It's a global student body. It is a global network that becomes available. And it's not just Deerfield centric. This is something as part of the postgraduate academic world, athletic world. Your network is tremendously powerful. And I would love for you to speak a little bit about that. And not so much when you're an actual student, but when you're in your 30s or 40s and you begin to hit the professional world, you have access to mentors that are an alumni. You have alumni gatherings across not only the state or New England, but the country and the world. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I think every year, Walter, we do our alumni events on the 5 year sort of cycle here, and this place is sold out within days, and that's usually 600 or 700 beds of these former students and alumni that come back to spend time, and they have workshops here and they have dinners and again, I use the word a lot. That's where the networking is, right? At these alumni events. I know there's a Boston-based alumni. There's a San Francisco. There's one down in Texas. There's some in Chicago. So it's a great group. It's a vast group, and being a part and having Deerfield behind you can carry a long way in the future.
So let's take a deeper dive. We're talking about athletics and talk about the level of competition that Deerfield is playing, obviously as it pertains to baseball, but all sports, and talk about the level of competition and how much the college coaches value that a college prospective student athlete is actually competing at a Deerfield athletic level against what we would all consider in this area elite competition.
Sure. Yeah. I think, these rosters are blanketed with college commits. I don't think we play a game in the spring where we don't pitch a college commit or we don't play against a team that's pitching a college commit. Our lineup, we average 5 to 7 to 8 commits a year here. So I know our lineup is basically all committed kids for that particular year. And the only kids that aren't committed are probably the younger players that haven't done so. And I think for the most part, we're playing a lot of the same programs that have similar roster sizes, similar lineups. Our games are super competitive. I think, I mentioned earlier, we were 16-4 last year. We're 11-2 in one-run games. I mean, you talk about 3-2, 2-1, really, really good ball games, well played, well coached. And as I mentioned, these lineups, we had SEC players in our league last year. We've had ACC guys here before. It's a high level of play for sure.
So, would you say that the postgraduate experience has been accelerated now with all the changes, not only that are looming ahead at the NCAA Division One level, but over the last few years post COVID? Would you say that the postgraduate experience is something that families are taking a longer look or taking a deeper look into for their prospective student athletes?
Yeah, totally. I think, Walter, looking back 7 years ago when I took this job here, prior to COVID, we might have had 15 or 20 inquiries for a post grad year for baseball. And maybe, I took over a program that was really struggling. I'm pretty sure you're aware of that in 2017. And we put them in the playoffs every year. And like I said, won New England's last year and everything else. And then COVID hit, and I saw a little bit of a spike, but that sort of coincided with our success. But yeah, I think post COVID, and with everything that's going on with Division One, especially recruiting and the portal and everything else, I think people have wanted an extra year and to try to let things settle down. We talk about it a lot, bigger, faster, stronger, smarter with that extra year. I think that's really important. But, this year, or we can go with last year's number. I think we had over 130 inquiries for Deerfield overall. That's all 4 grades. But last year's PG inquiries, I think, were 50 plus.
Wow.
And we're headed in that direction again already. I bet you we've got a healthy 35 already with, probably another 2.5 months to go in the admissions cycle here. Our deadline is January 15th. So we're going to probably hit 60 this year. So there is an interest, especially post COVID, but I think it's post COVID. And I think it's a little bit of Division One baseball roster sizes, portal movement, everything else.
A lot of parents and student athletes that I speak to, their first reaction when I broach the topic of postgraduate year, they think of it as I'm going to repeat my senior year in high school, or hey, I get great grades, I have good test scores, I really don't need to repeat. And you and I were talking before we started here, and you really brought up an interesting dynamic with regard to the curriculum, the expansive curriculum. And I would really love for you to kind of share with families, some of the academic opportunities that Deerfield offers with regard to the postgraduate students.
Yeah, sure. And I think first off, most college coaches would tell you the student that has taken an extra year in high school is going to be more physical, obviously,
Yep.
but probably more mature. And we touched on this a little bit earlier with the time management piece and everything else. But they're going to get a physical and more mature student. In terms of the course schedule, and what we look for here is again me taking the postgraduate baseball player as a college advisee, talking about the set of schools that they're looking at, talking about the fact that they do have to take one full year of English, and we have several English options for them. I think it's 8 or 9 for seniors. But it's a time for growth, right? Like I think 85 to 90% of our roster will have reclassed at some point, whether it be ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th, or 12th, which is the PG. And it's not frowned upon. It's not as if somebody's made a mistake or you need another year or it's discipline based or anything else. It's a year of growth across the board. And it's a year for students to possibly take more standardized tests, if maybe standardized testing is a requirement at the schools that you're looking at. But it's another year to take another level of math, possibly another foreign language. And it's also a time to maybe take some classes that the student didn't have a chance to take at their current high school. And I gave you a couple examples earlier of we've got an electric vehicle engineering course here. No homework. Students like it, right? No homework, but a lot of hands-on work, and a lot of collaboration. And I should mention our classes are capped at 12 students here. So that EV or electric vehicle engineering class is capped at 12 students. They're all in there, groups of 3 or groups of 4, building a small electric vehicle from scratch. There's economics courses. There are courses where they can, if they like physics or chemistry or environmental science, that they can take post AP level courses there. So there's a lot of opportunity. Our course catalog is pretty robust. I think we offer over 200 courses, similar to a smaller college, to be honest with you.
You had mentioned briefly when we were discussing IMG your southern trip, and I get this question a lot. Oh, isn't it cold up there in New England? How many games do they get to play? And one of the exciting components to when my son Tyler was looking into some of the ISL schools was the southern trip, which, not a lot of public schools here in New England do that. Can you talk a little bit about your season? When does your practice schedule begin? And tell us a little bit about your southern trip and, what that's like and teams that you might compete against.
Sure. Yeah. It starts now. There's full access to our turf field now. Brand new synthetic turf field, $4 million project, just opened last year. We're about to add stadium seating there as well. State of the art place. We love it there. But this time of year, a lot of our PGs are working in small groups, getting their work in. We're just starting to kind of shut our pitchers down, turn into let them get accustomed to our strength and conditioning program. We've got 2 full-time strength and conditioning coaches, and we have a lifting program here based on position-specific lifts. And we talk a lot about flexibility, explosiveness, and core strength here. So a lot of our guys are on that now. Our infielders could still be getting ground balls. We're getting swings all the time. We've got 2 outdoor cages, 2 indoor cages. We have an indoor cage with a senior hack attack with a self feeder that's open all the time. So fall work right now is a lot of captains work, a lot of small group work. December and January, we start to get inside. That's where I can start to work in small groups with pitchers and catchers to build our pitchers up for the spring trip. Our field house is about 80 yards by 60 yards. And we got a fairly tall roof as well, and it's all turfed out. That's where the 2 hitting cages are as well. Quite the facility. 4 years old, state of the art facility, outstanding. So we'll work with our pitchers and catchers, get them ready for our spring trip to IMG, which this year will be March 16th to the 23rd. While at IMG, we'll play 7 exhibition games there and practice probably 12 times, baseball intensive. And then we'll travel back as a team on the Sunday, the 23rd. Start classes the 24th. Games start every Wednesday and Saturday. A lot of double headers on Saturdays, single games Wednesday, and we do add in single games as well on Mondays and Fridays.
So, you had mentioned about the college conferences that you work with. A lot of parents have this thought process that college coaches never go to high school games. And I used to always find that I could never understand how somebody who's going to try to tell a parent that college coaches do not attend high school games. Obviously, on the weekends, they're pretty busy, but I would assume that you can attest to the fact that at your games, particularly on Wednesdays, there are college coaches that will find their way not only to Deerfield, but all the games that you're playing across, Massachusetts, the NEPSAC, Founders League, et cetera. Can you share a little bit of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, without a doubt. I would agree, Walter. Definitely the Wednesdays, some of the Mondays, and it's why we play some Mondays. Also, as our season goes, colleges will wrap up, and we're still playing and making our playoff run. In the prep school world, we as a league the last couple of years have played our two semifinals on one day, one site, and a final the next day, and with a rain backup plan that if the semis get rained out, we push everything to one day. We'll do two semis and a final one day, and over the last 4 or 5 years, I've counted 20, 25 coaches, at our what we call our Final Four. And it's a Final Four that we've been in the last 7 years.
Well, I know some of the alumni that have gone through Deerfield. I know a lot of, we could talk about other schools, other athletes that have gone there. It's safe to say that on any given day, Wednesday or Saturday, even Monday for that matter, when you're playing, the level of competition, I'm going to say borders on that elite level of national high school baseball. On any given day, a Deerfield Academy, we could take them and drop them into Florida or California or Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, et cetera. And that's a competitive baseball game. So all the parents that, well, there's no such thing as better than Texas or Georgia, et cetera. I would love for you to just kind of share that, oh yes, you're the caliber of competition within the conference and the non-conference games that you play, pretty gosh darn good.
Yeah, and I've got a couple examples, Walter. The last couple of years, we played at IMG last year, the state champions from Oklahoma. I think they'd been the state champs there 22 of the last 28 years.
Oh,
Great opportunity for us. A bunch of Big 12 commits, everything else. They beat us 6-5 in extra innings. And again, they're probably, and I'm not, it is what it is, right? It was a well played game. Coaches shook hand after and said, "Hey, we each got better today." But I think at the end of the day, they're at a much different part of their season then. They rolled out a starter for 80 pitches. Our starter was a hard
right.
stop at 45 pitches, and not making excuses. It was a good ball game. Anytime that we can add some intensity and add some pressure outs and pressure at bats when we're down in Florida, we're only going to get better. 2 years ago, we played the IMG national team, who went on to be national champs. Faced Cam Johnson, who was a first rounder, and they kind of did it was kind of a staff day, so they went and won a day. I think they went from Cam, who was a first rounder, to I think it was a Maryland commit, Florida State commit, Arkansas. They went right down the road, and we threw 3 or 4 guys ourselves, 4-0 game. They out hit us 6-3. Again, after the game, coach came over and was like, "When you guys coming back next year, let's play again." Like, am I saying if we play the IMG national team in a best of 7, we're sweeping them or anything else? No, but they're not going to mercy us in any of those games either. I feel like there'll be competitive games. There'll be well played games. We're going to pitch. We're going to execute pitches. We're going to execute a pitching plan. We're going to play really good defense, and we're going to be super aggressive on the bases, and we're going to put balls in play. That's how we play. It's a fun style.
Really refreshing to hear as a father of a pitcher when you hear a coach say hard stop at 45. That's music to my ears. I don't know if other parents caught that, but Pat, first and foremost, I want to say thank you. I, as a firm believer in the postgraduate opportunity, and obviously, I give strong consideration to all schools, but when it comes to quality coaching, quality campus life, culture, social activities, academic strength, it's hard to beat a school like Deerfield. I encourage parents to take a deeper look. Pat, how do you like to be contacted? Is it an email thing? Is it social media? A parent that might be watching this and says, "Man, I want to be a part of that." How would you like to be contacted?
Yeah, email is fine. pmoriarty@deerfield.edu, or my cell phone is great too, 413-222-4800.
And I'm going to
I
have
like to
all
help
that.
kids, much like you, Walter. I appreciate everything you do for student athletes. I'm the same way. If it's not a fit here, I'll help elsewhere. It's not always just going to be about Deerfield.
And I'm not going to say this because he's a guest here today, and he spent a considerable amount of time. It's a long day for Coach Moriarty, and he's joining me here. I have yet to have one family, and I've sent many, and Pat can attest to this. I've had many families not only visit Deerfield, but they've called, they've spoken directly to Pat. Not one has ever come back and said, yeah, that's not a good fit. Every single family is, wow, was that a tremendous call? Wow, we loved everything about Coach Moriarty. Wow, we loved everything about Deerfield. And that is a fact. And I think it's really important for parents during this whole, what I call nightmare scenario in some people's opinions with regard to NCAA Division One athletics. Take a step back, widen the lens, trade athletic ability for academic excellence. And I think you'll find that 10 years from now, your student athlete and you as parents will look back on that postgraduate year, much like I do with my son Tyler, and give a considerable amount of thanks and become deeply appreciative because they're life mentors. My son calls his high school, his Lawrence Academy, a coach once a month, and he's 32 years old. And these people become mentors, not just baseball coaches. And I think that's an integral part to the development as adults, becoming potential spouses and parents, obviously, and employers and employees. And I think if you take a deeper look into Deerfield, I think you'll agree with all the other parents who have done so in the past. It's really a great opportunity. And Pat, I want to say thank you for taking the time. I'm going to have all of your information in the description below. And anything I can do to ever help you and or Deerfield Academy, please consider it done.
Thank you, Walter. And I might add, there's one thing that we really preach here, and I don't know if we've touched on it. Is there are a lot of great college coaches out there and everything else, and great college programs. We really, really talk about the 40-year plan of life. Like, where is
Amen.
baseball going to take you? Not the 4-year baseball program, 4-year baseball plan, but the 40-year plan for life. And that's what we talk about at Deerfield here.
And
And
one
thank
of
you
the
for
things
having me.
I say all the time, Pat, I know you agree, if you're able to trade athletic ability for academic excellence, you'll never go wrong. There's a lot of roadblocks, hurdles, obstacles, not only in life, but with regard to athletics. There's potential injuries, the bottleneck, the level of competition, etc. But if you always, every step of the way, maintain your leverage, trade your athletic ability for academic opportunity and excellence, you'll never look back and regret or be disappointed. So, Deerfield is a school that can help you with regard to that. I hope all parents will take the time to look into and take a deeper look into Deerfield. And Pat, thank you again so much for your time.
Walter, thank you for having me, and thank you for all that you do for the student athletes out there.
Thank you, Captain.